Okay, so we're moving on to part 2 of the birth. To catch you up, I had basically been in labor for 48 hours. I had 5 hours of pushing. My water had been broken for 39 hours. I had preeclampsia. I was on Pitocin and epidural, magnesium, heart rate monitor, blood pressure cuff, internal catheter, internal heart rate monitor for the baby, and internal contraction counter. So I'm on all of these things. The baby comes out. He's not breathing. And just to back step a little bit. So remember how I said I had started on a level 2 Pitocin? Well, originally the nurse told me we can put you up to a level 22 of Pitocin. I had reached that level 22 and the doctor came in and said, well, actually you can go to a level 36. That's the max, with, you know, special permission. It has to be like written off by the doctor. So I got up to a 36, guys. I was on the highest level of Pitocin legally allowed to give someone. Most women will have a baby between a level 6 and a level 8, and I was on a 36. They had to change out that Pitocin bag so many times. Yeah, yikes. So, just crazy. Not my natural birth that I wanted. Just one intervention led to the next, and I knew it was necessary. That baby needed to come out. I was sick. My body was sick. The placenta was sick, and that baby needed to come out. But it was a long, hard labor. He came out. I was exhausted. I was delirious, but he came out, and there was a brief moment of this wonderful, amazing feeling, followed by the scariest moment of my entire life. And I said I wasn't going to cry, but my baby was blue and he wasn't breathing, and I knew there was something wrong. And I was like, you know, at first I was like, well, I know it's normal for babies to take a minute to breathe, but he wasn't breathing. And what happened was he had the cord wrapped around his neck 3 times. And when he was coming out, the doctor said that she couldn't get the cord unwrapped around his neck. And finally, it gave just enough for her to unwrap it. But she said in her 25 years of delivering babies, she had never seen a cord wrapped around so tightly. And the only thing I can think is he was in the birth canal for 5 hours, you know, and when a baby is coming out, you know, it kind of goes down, back up, and then, you know, finally comes out. So every time he came down, I think the reason why it took him so long to come out is because he'd come down and the cord would restrict around his neck, which is just the scariest thing to think about. And I'm so thankful that he is alive, because he might not have been. If I would have given birth at the birth center, he would have been dead. It's just like, if I had pushed any longer, I mean, it's just possible that he just wouldn't have made it. And it's just so scary to think about what the outcome could have been, how close the outcome came to being terrible. And so he was on me for just a very short amount of time. They clamped and cut the cord immediately. And then the doctor said to me very calmly, "It is about to get really busy in here." And then she called for a code pink, and a swarm of doctors and nurses came in. My baby was over on this table on the side. I could kind of see him. A lady came to my husband and a lady came to me and was telling us everything that was going on. His original APGAR score was 1, and then a minute later it was a 4. And then I think an hour later it was maybe a 7. They did it 3 times. It was like a 1, a 4, and then a 7. But he wasn't breathing, and his heart was barely beating. I don't even know exactly. I think maybe at one point it almost stopped. I remember them telling me they got the heart rate going. They had to intubate him. And that was just so sad. So they took the baby to the NICU, He was in there for maybe about 5 minutes in the room. They basically got him stable, got him breathing, and took him to the NICU. We had talked about this before. If an emergency ever arose, I would want my husband to go with the baby. And so my husband went with the baby. And just laying there on the table, bleeding, being stitched up, my baby, not knowing, in my mind, I was like, he's gonna die. That's what I thought. He's gonna die. I went through all of this, and he's gonna die. That's all I could think about. So my husband was gone for about an hour. He was, I think he maybe texted me a couple times while he was in the NICU. Basically, in the NICU, they were telling my husband, like, things aren't looking good. He's not moving. He's lifeless, even though he's breathing. He's completely just like, he was just floppy, just laying there. Finally, he started to move. He made a really fast recovery. The NICU nurses and doctors said they were really shocked and really impressed with how fast his recovery was. He went from not breathing, not moving, to, he was moving. He was intubated, but meanwhile, I'm in the delivery room still. The doctor is stitching me up for my episiotomy, and my placenta is not coming out. And it'd been about 30 minutes, and I said, doesn't the placenta come out, in like 20 minutes? She's like, yeah, usually like within 10 minutes it comes out. It's like, well, when is it a concern for the when does it start to be a concern that the placenta is not coming out? And she said, it's a concern right now. I was like, okay. So then she starts like kneading my stomach and punching it and kneading it and pushing on it as hard as she can. She's trying to get the placenta out. And I think that was the most painful thing out of everything. Obviously, I had an epidural. I actually did feel a little bit of the stitching up. I think the drip of the epidural was running out. And so I was starting to be able to feel some things down there. But more than anything, she was punching and kneading my stomach. It was bruised. That was the most pain. That was absolutely the most painful thing out of the entire birthing experience. As far as physical pain, that was probably the most painful. The back labor was painful too, but kind of in a different way. Finally, after maybe 45 minutes, the placenta came out in pieces, is what I believe. It came out, like a big piece came out, and then she actually reached her hand up in, and I pulled the rest out. From what I can remember, albeit I was completely out of it, but from what I remember, that's how it was, that she had to pull the rest of it out. And when she took her hand out, all of a sudden it was just gush, and I could just hear like blood, so much blood, just what sounded like buckets of blood. My mom's face went completely white, and then she called for another crash cart. And a bunch of nurses came running in with the crash cart. They jabbed me in the thigh with something. I'm not even sure what it was, honestly, to stop the bleeding. And that was really scary. I got really lightheaded, and that was scary. So she got the bleeding under control. And then my husband came back and kind of gave me an update about the baby. And that was the first hour of having a baby. He was in the NICU, and I'm in recovery, and then around 9 o'clock, someone came in and brought me a pump. I hadn't even thought about this kind of stuff, like, if I wasn't able to breastfeed my baby, what would happen? Someone came, and I'm out of it. I'm not even thinking about that for some reason. I'm just not. Someone came in and said, oh, here's a pump. You should probably start pumping. I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, I probably should start pumping because I want my baby to have my milk. So here I am 3 hours postpartum, and I start pumping. I get tiny little drops of colostrum. Around 9 o'clock, between 9 and 10, I actually get wheeled down to see my baby. I still have the catheter and the magnesium drip. So I'm in a wheelchair with a pulley with the bags hanging, and I'm completely out of it, so I don't even care what I look like. But I go down there and I just see him. He's intubated. He has tubes in his belly button. I mean, he had a chest x-ray. He had an abdomen x-ray. He's on wires and drips, and honestly, I don't even know everything that he was on because I was so out of it. I just was out of it. And it's like he's just on all these monitors, and it was just the saddest sight. So sad. I was heartbroken. I didn't feel like I could completely let myself like fall in love with him because I wasn't even sure if he would live. I didn't sleep that night. Obviously, at any moment, I was afraid that I'd get a call from the NICU that my baby was dying. So here I am postpartum. I just had a very traumatic birthing and labor, and then I don't even get a hold of my baby. And, that's really healing for a traumatic birth, and I didn't get that. And I just felt broken, just completely broken. At 13 hours old, though, he the intubated tube was removed, and he was able to breathe on his own without an oxygen mask or anything, which was really great. He had a tube in his mouth still, or a little, like a very like small like little tube down his throat to remove air from his stomach. His stomach was like descended, I don't know the proper term, but it was basically like puffed up with air. He kept swallowing a lot of air. And over the next few days, I'm trying to think. I wanted to tell us in order. So at 24 hours old, or 23 hours old, I actually got a hold of him for the first time. All of the wires and everything, I finally got a hold of him skin to skin, and I think that was the moment that I was like, oh my gosh, this is my baby. I love him so much. Nothing better ever happened to him. And I think that moment that you have when your baby is first born, you fall in love with them, that was the moment that it happened for me. Not that I didn't love him before then, but it just was like a defense mechanism type of thing where I wasn't fully letting myself like become attached to him because of what was happening. But in that moment, holding him, it was like, if anything happens to him, I will die. He is my entire life. Like, he's my baby. And I fell completely in love with him in that moment. And there's more to the story, but now this video is 13 minutes long, so I'm actually gonna have to do this in 3 parts, people. So stay tuned for part 3.